My guest today helps women who are exhausted from trying to be enough. She told me something I haven't been able to stop thinking about. Most women know they're worthy. They believe it in their head, but in their heart, they're not sure if they can live up to it. That gap is where everything stalls. The income, the dream, the life she actually wants. Tracy is on the show. Let's get into it. Can you take me back to a moment in your own journey when you realized something had to change?
Um, it was pretty gradual actually because I had I was a good girl and
Mm.
I did the good girl things and I was I was going along and I was happy and but felt just this internal pressure all the time of was I doing well enough? Was I being good enough? And so aware of my weaknesses, my shortcomings, and so always trying to work to improve those. I didn't realize how much a project I was treating myself like, but it was always like there was always something that I needed to be doing better and that kind of thing. And then it just where it came to light for me was actually in my relationship with food and my body, because I thought I just can't keep I was one who dieted and exercised for the purpose of weight. It was not for, health, mental health, or physical health nearly as much as it was I need to either lose weight or I need to maintain the weight that I'm at. And that constant struggle, I just thought, in the back of my mind, I had this idea that it's we're gifted with these bodies from God. It shouldn't be so hard to do this all the time. And I just want to be able to eat and, trust my body enough to eat what it's telling me it needs. And so it just kind of built gradually and gradually. And I thought that the idea of just being able to eat and I wanted to be able to eat what I wanted when I wanted, not meaning I just wanted to gorge and binge all the time, meaning that I wanted to be able to trust that my body, the way that it was created, the way it's like I know that there are internal controls here. I know that this is not how I was created to have to be so focused on this. And so it just kind of gradually built over over a long time. And then and two, I thought I trusted myself, and there were a lot of areas that I trusted myself in. And then I happened across a video from the place where I ended up getting my certification. And the things that they said were like, oh my gosh, this is exactly what I think, exactly what I've been hoping for, as far as what they were saying about how, your relationship with your food and the relationship with your body and all of that. Um, and that's why I just went, okay, this is it. I'm done with this. I have to make a change because I'm not going to keep doing this. And interestingly, the more I got into that work and realized how much I had stopped trusting, I didn't realize how little I trusted myself when it came to my relationship with food and my body. And as I saw that and started mending that, I saw other areas where I didn't trust myself nearly as much as I thought I did. And so it's just been this great journey of growth, but it was really gradual. There wasn't like any one moment that I went, I didn't have any major illness. I didn't have any massive, life change or circumstance or anything like that that went, oh my gosh, I can't do this anymore. It was just this gradual build towards like, I can't, I don't want to keep doing this like this. There's got to be something better, something different, something more natural.
Right, absolutely. And I know you mentioned you were the good girl, you did the good girl thing. Do you think that played a role in your relationship with food?
Yeah, I did because, and the input from society is that for women especially, is that you're supposed to be a certain shape, a certain size, and here's all these resources to enable you to do this, all these diets, all these exercise plans. And so I had turned that into um, using those things for a manipulation of my body, which is what they're designed for. Um, but it was also it just created a disconnection within me. And so it really did affect I felt like if I wasn't doing those things, if I wasn't really watching my weight and exercising the way that I should, and all that, that was very much of the good girl behavior. And so that those are things that I actually had to step away from exercising for a while because I had such a toxic relationship with it. I had to stop. And every now and, every few months I try to go back and man, those things would click right back in. It's like, not ready for this yet. And so during that time, it's not like I completely stopped moving at all, but I would just go for walks.
Mhm.
And that was all. That was all I could mentally do physically without flipping back into that mindset that was just not good.
Right. Now, when women first come to you, what do they think the problem is? And what do you actually see?
A lot of times they'll come to me for weight issues. And I mean, I kind of deal with that, but it's like, I am not a weight loss coach by any stretch of the imagination because I know that it's so much more than that. I've had clients who have lost weight and like shockingly easily. I've had clients who've been maintained weight and I've had clients who've actually gained weight. But it's about, so that's where it kind of first starts is, and that's where it was for me too. It was that relationship with my food and body that really drove me down this path. And but it just, like so many other things, the way that we interact with food is the way that we interact with life. It's how we do life. And so all of those things that I was seeing that were quote unquote wrong with my relationship with food, those were also areas that I needed to address just in my life in general that I hadn't recognized yet.
Oh, wow. Now, you told me in our DMs about something you call the not enough lie. Can you walk me through what that actually sounds like in your head?
Yeah, and I think that's really close to the bottom line of where this all lands. Like I said, my certification is as an eating psychology coach, and so that was kind of the door that I went in, but it affects so many areas of life for so many women. If you're a mom, it's the you're doing everything you can. Your heart is in it. You love your children and you're doing the best you can to be a good mom, but you see all of your shortcomings all the time. Either, whether if you're a mom that stays at home with your kids, that you're not doing enough with them, you're not doing enough for them, in all these various things. And oh my gosh, why do we this is the life that I've chosen. Why do we get so frustrated? Why do we get so angry? It must be something wrong with me. I'm not enough. I'm not a good enough mom. If you're a mom who works outside the home, it's the guilt of, oh, I'm not spending the time with my kids, or if I'm spending time with my kids, then the other stuff at home is not getting done, or I feel like I'm shortchanging work. And so there's this in that regard, that's kind of how that shows up. Just I'm not enough. I'm not as good an employee as I could be because I'm focused on being a mom. I'm not as good a mom as I can be because I need to work too. So that's where that shows up there. In diet and exercise, it shows up as these, adopting these diets where we demand perfection of ourselves. And if we're not doing it just right, then it's like, oh my gosh, what is wrong with me? Why can't I just follow this eating plan? And I'm not disciplined enough. I don't have enough willpower. That can leak into our faith life as well. And we feel like, oh gosh, well, I know how I'm supposed to be living. I know that I'm supposed to be, serving in my community and being kind and all of the things that Jesus taught. And I just, man, on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm at about a 3, and which is not true most of the time. It's what we think and it's what we feel. Because we see this gigantic gap between what we think we can be and should be and where we actually are and who we actually are at the moment. And we think that that's just such a gigantic problem. And we end up living in this constant cycle of not enough. I always need to be doing better. I always need to be fixing this or doing that or improving that. And so it really touches, financially. It can show up financially. I know all the good financial rules, and I still go to Starbucks every day and spend more money than I should. It just shows up in so many areas of our life, and we just end up living in this constant state of I'm just not enough. I have to fix myself, or I'm just not enough, and I never will be. I give up.
Right.
And neither of those are the place that ideally we want to be or that we need to be.
Absolutely. Now, so much of not enough voice was installed before women even had a say in it. How
Mhm.
early do you usually trace this back?
Oh my goodness. It goes back for myself as long as I can remember. because I was just talking to somebody about this yesterday. Um, I had parents who were a very interesting dichotomy. With my mom, I really felt like, the sun rose and set in me and I could do no wrong. Which that sounds really lovely, but that's also not a place to live because that's not a place of growth. There's not the, okay, yeah, you're doing great, but maybe, maybe there's improvement that can be made. You talk to top athletes, and they don't want coaches that are telling them how wonderful they are, that they're so much better than most everybody else in the country. It's like, well, good, but I want to be the Olympic champion. I don't want to be better than most people in the country. And so that's not a fully healthy place. It's a wonderful place. It
Mhm.
feels good, but
Right.
it's not ideal place to live. And then on the other hand, I had a father who, and I don't want to make my dad sound terrible. My dad was a wonderful man. He was not, abusive or in any way, but he just was not emotionally connected. And he didn't know how to be. And and he had more of the trying to help us to do things our best kind of mentality, which when you combine that with the lack of emotion, it just felt like he wasn't overly critical. Like I said, I don't want to paint my dad as this. I'm just talking about my response to how he was. Um, it ended up being like I just felt like whatever I did was never going to be good enough for my dad ever. And so I got these two opposite ends of the spectrum, really. But that voice of it's not good enough, you're not good enough, which that's what it translates to. This effort that you're putting in is not good enough. And so therefore we internalize that and make it into an identity thing of I'm not good enough. And so for me, it legitimately goes back as far as I can remember. And that's how it is for a lot of people. But when we talk about cultural expectations of women, that a lot of it's physical. And now, as we're going, women are more and more in the workforce and more in, the C-suite offices and more being the business owners. It's spreading into that realm more and more as well. Just this I can always be doing better. Yeah, my business is prosperous, but I can scale it 10 times, you know?
Yeah.
And if I just get the right systems in place, and so there's always this make it more, make it bigger, make it better. And that's part of the American dream. And there's a lot to be said for that. There's a lot of healthy mindset in that, but it's just something to be careful of because it's so easily turned into if there's always more, if there's always bigger, if they're always better, then that always means that we're just not quite enough. And when to be able to go, yeah, I know I could scale my business, but I don't want to.
Right.
I don't want to make it into a Fortune 500 company ever. That's not what I want for my business. And that's not a mindset that culturally has been very supported. And so there's just always this kind of, part of the watch out for side of the American dream is that bigger, better, whatever you want, you can be, whatever you want to do, you can do. And those are wonderful beliefs, but they are beliefs to be careful with.
Absolutely. And I think it's interesting how things that we either learned or we saw or our environment from decades ago still have an impact on us today.
Hmm.
And so, how do you see these patterns show up in a woman's day to day, in her work, in her body?
Um, Day to day, it leaves us, like I said before, just always kind of feeling like, oh, well, even if we do take the time to acknowledge, you know what, I killed it in that presentation I gave today. Man, everybody was right with me. They were right where I hoped that they would be, and it was wonderful. Um, and then we rewrite that for 5 or 10 minutes and go, ah, shoot, but my kid's soccer uniform is dirty and he's got a game today you know and so there's that just this constant back and forth of that so that just that day to day the constant monitoring. I don't know if you're familiar with Jamie Kern Lima's book Worthy. No, not that. No, sorry, that's an awesome book as well. But Lindsay and Lexi Kite's book More Than a Body, they talk about something in there that they call self-objectification, where we're all familiar with the term of the idea of women being objectified, which they very much have been and are. But they talk about what they call self-objectification, which is where we're doing that to ourselves. We just live in this constant state of monitoring. And we end up with it instead of just being in our body and living our life, we kind of like step outside of our body and are judging ourselves. Again, related to our body is how they address in this book, but it relates to other things as well. Instead of being the one who is just in that moment, in that presentation, we are giving the presentation and we're thinking, I probably should not have worn this color shirt because it doesn't really, it's not, it's, I mean, or, do I have something in my teeth? And so I got to talk like this because I'm not sure if I cleaned up my teeth after lunch. So instead of being fully there and just fully present, we're just this constant self-monitoring and that we end up with living this kind of split feeling. And that just shows up in so many areas of life. And so it touches our what we're making for dinner or bringing home for dinner. And if we're bringing home dinner, then we think we should be making dinner. And if we're making dinner, we think it's taking too much time. And so now I'm not being able to focus on that presentation I've got coming up. And so it's like just this constant, just this mind game that we play, and it touches every area of life. What are we wearing? What are we eating? What are we buying? What are we not buying? How is our relationship with our spouse or significant other? How is our relationship with our children? It just touches everything. Our faith life, it touches our faith life as well.
Yes, you mentioned that when a woman is being self-critical or self-monitoring, you can't fully be present. So how does that affect the relationships we have with the people that we interact with daily? How do they see us or they see the women?
Sometimes when it's real, you've probably been around people that you can tell when you're with them. I mean, they might even be making eye contact, but just the way they're doing it, their brain is somewhere else. You can sense that. And so sometimes it's that blatant. But other times, so many of us do this so much that we kind of buy each other's BS.
Yes.
And so it's we don't recognize it sometimes, but and sometimes it takes years before we actually can look back. Sometimes if it's something we become aware of, then we can look back and go, oh man, yesterday when I was talking to them, I wasn't really with them. And then it can become right when you're in the moment,
Mhm.
oh, my mind is somewhere else. Let me get back to this person that I'm with. And if you're not with somebody, it's at the task that you're doing. My goodness, if we have the upside is we live in a time where we have so many resources, so much information available to us all the time. The downside is we have so much information available
Right.
to us all the time. And it's so easy to, and yeah, social media, we have the algorithms that are designed to keep us scrolling there, but it doesn't need, our brains don't need to be engaged to do it. And so we're not really present there with what we're doing, and we end up living kind of like that. So it's, when we're with other people, it sometimes can be really blatant and obvious, and other times it's just a self-monitoring thing. But it's also something that when you can become more aware of it, you start recognizing, I don't think they're really here with me right now. Um, and depending on who it is in the situation, it can either be um, is this not a good time to talk? You
Right.
seem like your mind is somewhere else. Or you seem distracted. Is there something else? Is there something going on that I can help you with? Or we can just go, okay, at least they're giving me 50% of their brain, and that's fine for right now, you know? And so just it varies in how we respond to it and how we notice it. But really, like with anything, the first step toward making any change and improving it at all is just noticing that it's happening.
Right. Now, I know you've mentioned that you help women reconnect with their true identity. What does true identity actually mean, and how is it different from someone that's been performing in an identity?
Oh, that's such a good question because that word performing. Um, I know I have and still do, and I know I'm not alone in this. There are things that I do that I think I'm really there, but then when I look back, it's like, ooh, I was kind of performing that. I wasn't really there in that moment, really. Um, but are you familiar with the blue zones? Do you know what blue zones are?
No.
Okay. In the world, there are 5 areas that they found where people live to be like live basically with good health until over there over 100 years old. And there were these areas in the world where there's just like this concentration of that. And so they did a study and like what is it about these places? Is it what they're eating? Is it their life? What is it about them that causes these areas to have so an inordinate number of people who live to be over 100 that are in relatively good health? And so in this study, they found, and they range from they're in Japan and Greece and Italy and Costa Rica and California. So they're all over the world.
Right.
And so it's like, so what is the common denominator? And in that study, they found several things that contribute to that, but one of them is faith, and whatever it's so and they were it's not specific to a religion because these our countries are all over the world. They're different religions that they subscribe to, but it's having a some kind of faith foundation and participating actively in that. It legitimately contributes to our life, length of our life, and the quality and the health of our life. Partially because when you're actively participating in whatever religion you subscribe to, it's it gives there's connection because there's other people there too, and so it gives that connection. But really, it gives a sense of purpose of that, and that where that identity can be. I understand why I'm here. Now, as a Christian, I believe that I'm a daughter of God, and I believe that you're a daughter of God. And so when I can hold on to that and I think, well, what does that mean, really? What does it mean to be a daughter of God? How is a daughter of God? And who am I if I'm living really as his daughter? And that has a huge impact on from me, then that's going to impact how I treat other people. But then when I also see you as a daughter of God, it's going to so impact how I treat you. Because, I don't know if you've noticed, but we don't all get along with each other perfectly all the time.
Right.
And so when somebody's doing something, a spouse or a significant other or a child, when they're just like taking you to your last nerve, we can go, oh, something's going on with them. I don't know what it is, but I see them as a child of God. And I know that this isn't really them because this kind of whatever, this kind of nonsense is not really, if they were living in from their true identity right now, this would not be the case. And so I can hold them in a different space. And I can give them space to, goodness knows, we're all just a mess in different ways. And when we can sit back and not be judgmental of how somebody else's mess shows up and just give them space, then if it's somebody we're close enough to, we can actually help them get out of that mess just by how the space that we hold them in, and not being reactive to their nonsense that's coming up. And or if it's somebody that we're not close enough to help them with it, we can just give them the grace for acting the fool. It's an example of that. I remember my son owns an auto repair shop, and I help him out a couple of days a week there, doing bookkeeping and financial stuff and front desk stuff. And one day, this customer called, and they were literally just yelling at me on the phone. And so my son could not hear them, but he had happened to walk in from the shop when I was on the phone with this person, and he could hear me going, "Oh yeah." I mean, the guy would not even let me get a word in edgewise, and that's a very easy situation where I could go. I know my value as a person, and I do not deserve to be treated this way. And it's true. I don't deserve to be treated like that. I had done nothing to this man to warrant this. And so it'd be easy for me to get defensive, and rightfully so, and go, I'm sorry, sir, you may not speak to me that way, and come back like that. But after the first few times of me trying to address what his complaint that he had and him not listening to me, I realized, oh, he just needs to vent. And I realized that, he is a son of God. I know that he is not a person who wants to go through life acting like this and yelling at people. And if he does, if he actually is that kind of person, then there's something even more going on because that's not how we came from God. And so I was able to just to let him vent, let that run its course, and then, with the end of that, go, okay, well, and where would you like us to go from here? And my son was afterward, he's like, who was that you're talking to? And I said, told him who it was, and da da da. And he's like, I'm calling him, and he cannot talk to you like that. And I was like, well, thank you, but I'm okay. And it's not okay that he did that, but this is what he needed. And don't stir the pot. I don't thank you for being willing to, but I don't need you to defend me in this. And he's like, I don't want customers treating anybody at the front desk, especially my mom. I don't want him to treat my staff like that. And I said, I get it, but I don't think he's going to keep doing that. And so and so that interaction that could have been so different, I was able to just step back and go, oh, this is his stuff. I don't know him well. I, had seen him a couple of times as a customer, but recognizing he's a son of God, something else is going on. And the next day he called and apologized
Oh, wow.
because he's just like, I'm sorry. I should not have spoken that way. And I just had so many other things going on. And so because I was able to see him for who he was and treat him that way and give him that grace, it allowed him to come down. If I would have come back guns blazing
Mhm.
and, I don't deserve to be treated, it would have just escalated, and who knows what would have happened. But it would not have been him calling the next day and apologizing. I can tell you that.
Right. Yeah, I think it's so hard when we come across situations like that to not take it personal, and
Mhm.
depending on what's going on our end, to like be able to like step away from that. So how can someone do that? Like not see it as a personal attack or not feel defensive when situations like that happen.
Man, you have such great questions. Great question. A couple of things. First of all, sometimes there is a time where you go, no, you may not speak to me like that. And so really being guided, I very much believe, again, from my Christian background, that we can have the Spirit of God to be with us that can help us to know when to do which. If we look at the example of Christ, there were many times, I mean, he legitimately said not a word and turned the other cheek. And there were other times where he said, no, no. He looked at the Pharisees and said, you are hypocrites, you are liars. And so it's like it's not like being Christ-like, it's just being, oh, okay, we're just gonna let everybody get away with however they want to treat us all the time, because that's not what Christ did. And so in our imperfection, that spirit can help us. And there will be lots of mistakes and missteps along the way. But if that's what we want, we can work toward that direction. So there's that to be said. Now, as far as when it is time to just keep our mouths shut. For me, it has really just been really learning to not just know that I'm a daughter of God, but to understand what that means and accept that even with all of my many imperfections and all of the ways that I still fall so short, that's okay. I wasn't sent here to be perfect and to live perfect and to do this perfectly. And I think sometimes we hear that, it says in scripture, be ye therefore perfect.
Mm.
It does. That's true. However, he didn't say right now. What he said was, come, follow me. What he said was, my yoke is easy, my burden is light. Come and I will give you rest. That's what he said. Would he have said that if we were able to be perfect all the time in every situation? No, because we wouldn't need that. He said, repent and come unto me. We wouldn't need to repent if we could possibly be perfect all the time. That perfection, and also noting that when he says, be ye therefore perfect, note where that is. It's at the end of the Sermon on the Mount, where all the verses prior to that are talking about love and being loving. So, what we can aim for is to be not perfect in action, but become more and more perfected in love through his love and through then offering that to other people.
That's beautiful. Now, what does it take for women to come to the realization there's something wrong when they're being self-critical, when they're thinking they're not enough? Do they think, oh, I'm not enough? Or does something happen before they come to you and they're like, I need help?
Um, a lot of times where, again, first thing to notice is to notice and to notice how we're speaking to ourselves. And if we've got this constant, um, negative self-talk, "Ugh, I shouldn't have done that. Why can't I do this? Or it just is that constant, whether it's super harsh and critical or whether it's just mild correction all the time, all the time, all the time. Um, we just get to that point that it's like, I can't go on like this. Um, or again, since I kind of come in the door of food and body, people are just like, I can't keep doing this. I can't, why I'm just keep gaining weight. And a lot of the times because weight is so focused on in society, and because it's something that's so easily measured and seen, that's something that triggers a lot. And so a lot of times people will come to me with from that position where it's like, I can't live like this in this body anymore. Help me out with this. But again, that's just through the food and body door. There, if maybe it's through the financial door, and you just get to the point where it's like, I can't live under this financial stress anymore. I just can't. I can't. I don't see things getting better. There's got to be a way to do something differently. Um, but so it's like there's many, many doors that we can go through to get to the that all end up pointing to the same thing of that feeling of not being enough. And then from there, realizing that that's an identity thing. That's an identity thing. And working from that position.
Right. And what does it take to actually break the pattern when someone realizes, okay, this is not working, the way I'm operating is not working? What does it take for them to actually break the pattern and start seeing themselves as someone worthy?
That is, again, great question. Um, that starting place can be different for other people, but to break those patterns, again comes back to identity, to
Mhm.
realize that we, I don't, I don't deserve to live like this, and really believe that because that's something that Jamie Kern talks about in her book Worthy. For her, is as an example. And this is an example that not many of us can relate to, but we can get the idea of it because I don't know if you know who she is. She owned It Cosmetics and she started it in her living room and built it up to a business like through struggles and struggles and struggles, built it up to a business where she actually sold it to L'Oreal for over $1 billion. And then at that point, she grew up like idolizing Oprah Winfrey and just really like everything that Oprah was saying and doing. She was like so there for it, and she used to watch it every day when she was growing up when Oprah still had a show. And so then she gets to this point in her life. She sells her company for $1 billion. I can't remember how they connected, but she ends up connecting with Oprah Winfrey. And Oprah gave her her personal phone number and said, "You call me anytime, sister." And you would think that here's a woman who has built this company up from nothing to $1 billion sale. And now she is in the circles that she would love, that she's, could hardly even dream of being in, having met Oprah Winfrey.
Mhm.
And it took her 3 or 4 years, I think it was 4 years, before she would ever use that phone number. And
Wow.
she's like, why did I do that? And she realized because she didn't feel, she still, with all of those accomplishments, she still didn't feel worthy of being a friend of Oprah's. And so we do that to ourselves. It's like we may have doors open to us. She had this door open. This woman had been her mentor for all of her life from a distance. Now she had a chance to have her as a mentor up close and as a friend. And she didn't take the opportunity because that's not where her identity was yet. And so the first step is really learning to trust and believe that we actually can have something different. And it's not like, oh, I deserve this. It's just it's that this kind of turmoil, this kind of situation, I don't think this is how God would want me to live. And consulting with him and asking him if that's how he wants you to live, and and listening and acting from there. and believing that, yeah, you can get out from under that financial, that out from under that debt, and you can have financial freedom and all the things that that would mean. And we can sit and we can visualize and we can, hope and dream, but until we really believe it. That's why, I mean, you look at the odds are staggering. People who win the lottery, first of all, people who are playing the lottery are people who are want out of their financial situation and they want, you know, they want the big payday.
Right.
And they get the big payday, and what happens? It's
Oh,
gone. Mostly, most of the time within a year, that money's all gone. And oftentimes they end up in a worse financial situation. And it's not because they didn't get what they wanted. They did, but they didn't, their identity was not as, they're not playing the lottery going, okay, so somebody who is a multimillionaire, how do they live and how do they keep their money?
right.
They're not doing that ahead of time to adjust their identity to be that kind of person. They're just like, here I am, and I want to be here.
Hmm.
And so I'm playing the lottery. And oh, look, I get here. But because my mentality is still down here and my identity is still down here, they end up right back down there. So that really that the identity, and that's not fast work. And I think a lot of oftentimes people just don't have the patience for it. It's like, and that's where dieting comes in. It's like, well, it's 20 pounds in 10 weeks. And it's like, okay, I want to do that. Or is some of these, I just saw one the other day. What was it? It was like 50 pounds in 10 days or something like that. I'm like, that is not healthy. But when we're in that mindset of this is where I am and that's where I want to be, it's like, just get me from point A to point B as fast and as easy as
Hmm.
possible. And, but that doesn't give time for our identity to change with that. And so yeah, we may drop that 20 or 50 pounds. And if we haven't changed our identity, then we're going to go right back to where we were before.
Right. How often do you see that people regress when their identity hasn't changed, where they'll get the thing that they want, be it the body, the income, and then, because they haven't adjusted their identity, it kind of regresses right back.
Every time,
Right.
every time, because we live what we believe. What we believe about ourselves is what we live. And so that I work so much on helping women to understand the women who I coach Christian women, so it's the common faith base,
Yes.
um, to really understand their identity as a daughter of God, what that means, and to be able to have that hope of, oh, that's what it really means. It's not going to mean, it doesn't mean that every situation is going to go perfectly. Goodness knows. Look at the scriptures. Did the people that, ended up with the happy endings in the scriptures, did they have a lovely life leading up to it and a perfect life after? Not usually. And and sometimes we think in, speaking in the Christian framework, well, I'm doing all the things I'm supposed to. I'm living the commandments, so life should be easy. Again, look at the perfect example, Christ. Was his life easy? No. If we want to be like him, we can't expect easy, but what we can expect is peace and purpose and understanding and living from our identity and understanding that identity. And that gives us, that's, we understand our worth. And so, whatever we're going through, we know that we can do it because we're His and He's with us. He's told us, I am with you always.
Now, when you're breaking those patterns, I know you mentioned identity is a big part. How important is faith and spirituality when you're going through those moments where you're like, I need to change, my life?
For now, obviously, I can't speak to everybody's experience, but in my experience, that's the only thing that makes the really hard things doable.
Mm.
When my sister passed away when she was 38,
Oh, sorry to
she
hear
had
that.
a 3-year-old daughter, and that daughter was everything to her. My sister was such a good mom. And when, for me, as my sister's sister, I just prayed that that was one of the hardest things for me. It's like because of my beliefs about, afterlife and that I could rectify and I could accept that she was going to go a lot sooner than any of us would have hoped. But I just really, the thought that her daughter may not even remember her because she was so young, that just tore my heart apart. And that was something that I really had to, I had to come to the point where it's like, God, please, please let her live long enough so that her daughter can just at least remember her.
Mhm.
And, very strongly being prompted that my niece was in his hands. And he would not do anything, would not call her to walk through anything that would ultimately damage her eternal possibilities. And so, because of that, my sister died when my niece was 3. And my brother-in-law ended up, not very long after that, we were kind of estranged from him. Unfortunately, his beliefs, he said after my sister died, well, I guess we're not family anymore. I was like, well, yes, we are, but I know that we can't force that on you. So anyway, so most of her growing up years, she didn't know us. She knew of us, but she didn't know us. And then we reconnected with her a few years ago. So she's an adult now, and she doesn't remember her mom. She has no memories of her mom. But because I was able to take that faith in God and in His plan, knowing that my sister was also his daughter, and he wouldn't call on her to do anything that was going to damage her eternal potential and her eternal possibilities. And that little baby niece, she was also his daughter, and she was in his hands. And so we can, in those moments that are when we're going through the really hard things, and especially the things that we don't know when they're going to end.
Mm.
We don't know when they're, maybe this is something we're going to have to deal with the rest of our life. When we're dealing with those kind of things, when we can know that we're not alone in that He will walk with us in those moments, and then also trusting Him that I'm in His hands. Anybody else involved in the situation is also in His hands. And we may not see this the way that He does. And so we trust the way that He sees it. There's this wonderful poem that I don't remember the whole of it, but part of it it's talking about I think it's called The Weaver. But it's talking about, this the weaver is crafting this rug. And so the dark threads are as needful in the weaver's skillful hand as the threads of gold and silver in the pattern that he planned. When the um, when the loom is silent and the cease to fly, then will God unfold his reasons and explain the reasons why. I can't remember. It's something like that. I can't remember it exactly. But just that idea of I can't see his plan right now. When a rug is being woven like that, you're seeing the back side of it, and it usually looks like a mess. And knowing that, yeah, you need the dark thread as well as the threads of gold and silver. And that when I'm able to see his pattern, I'll go, oh,
Mm.
okay, that was hard, but it was worth it. I understand now. And sometimes we'll get that glimpse in this life, and sometimes we won't get it until later. But just being able to trust him and trust in his plan and just put our hand in his and walk.
Amazing. Now, final question. If a woman is listening right now and she recognizes herself in this conversation, what's the first thing she should do?
I would say get on her knees and pray, or go for a walk and pray, or just really reach out. Um, I and many others I know have had really sacred personal experiences in when reaching out to God like that. I would say that's the first thing to do is to just ask him. First of all, if you're having trouble seeing, believing in him, then just say, I hope you're there, but I don't know. Can you help me see that? Can you help me feel that? Can you help me know that? And having that bit of faith that allows you to go, this this can be real. This can be real. And then to turn to he has spoken to us. He's giving us so many scriptures. And we live in a time unlike any other in the history of the world where scriptures are so easily available to us. Um, if we know some scriptures that are favorites, go to those. If we're unfamiliar with the scriptures, um, go to AI, go to ChatGPT, wherever, and go, I am struggling with this and I need some scriptures to help me. Give me some scriptures from the Bible that can help me with this. And it will. Or there's a little game that I call scripture roulette. That there have been times where it's like I just need to just get to the scriptures and I just open it to a page and stick my finger down and read it. And it's shocking how many times like, oh my gosh, that's exactly like sometimes really specifically what I needed to hear. Um, that's not a method to employ all the time.
Right.
But if we're not comfortable with any of the other methods, if we haven't spent time with the scriptures to know his words and to know what can be comforting and what we need and the guidance that we need to be able to look it up and find it. And if we don't want to invite ChatGPT into that, we can try the scripture roulette.
Right.
But to turn to him and turn to his word because he has spoken to us. There's a reason why, out of all the writings that could have been preserved, out of all of the stories that could have been preserved, that those are the ones that were. And they're for us. Most of the people that lived in the time that those are written did not have access to them. We have access to them. They're written for us. And so just to be able to have enough hope, enough, just the tiniest seed of faith to be able to reach out to him because he's not going to leave us stranded. Also, understanding that he's going to answer us the way that he's going to answer us, not the way that necessarily the way that we think the answer should come. I should have a prayer. I should feel this major feeling in my heart or have this massive overflow of light and intelligence come into my mind. We don't get to make the parameters. So just being open to however he's going to answer you. Sometimes it's going to be by a flood of light, a flood of feeling, just a pounding in your heart that gives you such certainty. Sometimes it's going to be if you're out on a walk, you may see a bird flutter by that is ends up being so significant and so symbolic to you. It could be a song could suddenly come on the radio. It can come in so many different ways. A friend could send you a text, or you could get a random phone call, and it can come in so many ways. To just reach out and then listen. And part of the listening is going to the words that he's already spoken that are in the scriptures.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Tracy. I really appreciate you being here. Where can people find you and connect with your work?
My website is Nourishing Body Soul. There's no and in there because that would have been like $8,000 instead of the price that it was. So I'm like, I don't need an and that much. So it's nourishingbodysoul.com. Or if they just Google my name, Tracyastle, you can find linked. I'm on LinkedIn and Instagram and YouTube. I have a podcast, The Nourished Life for Christian Women, that's on Spotify and Apple and YouTube and everywhere the podcasts are.
If this episode sparked something inside of you right now, I do one-on-one clarity calls. 45 minutes, we figure out what's actually capping you, and you walk away knowing what to do next. Links in the show notes. Talk soon.